Welcome to Cup of Joe. A little bit of a different cup today. I'm recording in the evening and I thought it would be fun to have a coffee beer. So this is from Fremont Brewing, which is a local brewer in Seattle, and it's their coffee porter. And I want to actually do a video on this because I don't really know anything about beer. I mean, I live in a place where there's lots of really great craft beer, so I've enjoyed a wide range of what is possible, and I know that beer can be really tasty, but I'm not knowledgeable on the craft of beer, so I can't speak to that. But I can speak a little bit to coffee that's used in beer, because I can absolutely taste the coffee in this. If you're curious what they did with this, it's a coffee porter, and I read up a little bit on how they made it. They used a cold brew of coffee, and there's actually this kind of long thing on here. I'll actually just gonna link to it if you're really curious to read on how it's made. I like Fremont Brewing's beer. This is okay. We're a little picky on how coffee is put into other things. Like coffee tasting things often ends up capturing the worst parts of coffee to me. Like the coffee in here kind of tastes like cold brew that was sitting around for a long time. So it's a little unfortunate. But the rest of the beer is really tasty. Anyways, that's not the purpose of this video. I'm really hoping that you can help me out with something. So let me ask you a question, and then I'm gonna get into a little bit of a thought. Do you want to become a coffee connoisseur? Now, I ask that question a little hesitantly because in the industry, and I'm affected by this as well, there's a bit of like an aversion, or maybe it's just a delicate balance of talking about coffee in ways that could possibly drive people away. Because I think it's really easy to come off sounding super pretentious about coffee. And we're not interested in communicating pretension. We're not interested in that at all. We're all just really super passionately obsessed with really good coffee, and we're desperate to share with you all of that good stuff. And it's really hard to communicate. Like, the thing is, there isn't bad coffee. All coffee is good coffee. But there is a huge world of difference between the good coffee that everything is and the greatness that coffee is capable of being. And once you have tasted really good coffee, you know that difference. So kind of taking people from here to here is always a really big challenge. And most of the time it just kind of happens by accident. Most of the time it's just you happen across a cafe or a roaster that's producing really good coffee, and you happen to taste some really good coffee for the first time. That was my experience. I happened to run into a cafe with a barista who was obsessed, and he made me a really amazing espresso, and it tasted like nothing I'd ever had in coffee before. And long story short, here I am now. So for most people, that's kind of how it works. And for a lot of the really best cafes and roasters in the world, that's the way they do it. They just make really good coffee and provide opportunities for you to run into much better, more interesting, more fascinating coffee experiences. Now, I'm in a bit of a unique position. I publish a magazine that's about coffee. I don't have investment. I don't have a cafe. I don't have a roaster. I don't have those situations where you might come in and try the coffee and then stumble across something really good. I do have situations like this where I make videos and I talk about it and I share other people's stories, and I do have coffee experiences offered in things like the Coffee Lovers Box. So you might come across it there, but figuring out how to connect with you and bring you from there to there. And what we're ultimately talking about is a certain level of connoisseurship. We're talking about becoming really super knowledgeable and experienced and interested in the intricate craft of something, of knowing all the tastes that are possible in coffee, of discovering like the different origins and all the people involved. And that is a certain level of connoisseurship. But I wonder, is that something that people actively go after? Like, you're probably, almost certainly, if you're watching this, seeking that, but I want to know, is that the way you think about it? And so, to simplify it again, I ask, and I say there's no such thing as bad coffee. All coffee is good coffee, but there's a big difference between good coffee and really amazing coffee. There's a big difference between loving coffee and really getting into how it's made, why it's made, and who makes it. Is that what you were going for? Do you want to be a coffee connoisseur? Is that what drives you? If any of this has struck you in an intriguing manner, if you do want to become a coffee connoisseur, or if you recognize that's where you're going, I would really, really, really be grateful to hear from you in the comments. What is it that drives you? What are you interested in? Like, why are you watching videos about coffee? What is it that you really want to know and to discover? For me personally, it's not good enough to just drink coffee every day. Like, once I started having really good coffee, my experience, my morning experience of a coffee that's well made and a coffee that isn't, is an entire universe of difference. And so now I am driven, always driven and obsessed to not just have good coffee, but find better coffee and find the people who are involved in it and share their stories. It's just such a fascinating world out there. And yeah, I'd really like to know what drives you.